Hello, world. This is James Young. Welcome to Chat with Baba. I'm inviting you to journey with me as we talk about today's topic on fathering or parenting. What does it mean to be a parent? What does it mean to be a father? Parenting is a daunting task, daunting but exciting, challenging. And it's something that one is committed to for the rest of his life. By law, parents, the state says that you have responsibility for the next 18 years. But as a parent, there's an attachment that never severs. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. What does that mean? And what's the world like in which children will be reared? Today's world requires a high level of literacy to function in it. And I'm saying that to say that literacy really begins at birth, unbeknownst to parents. All of what you do sets the stage for how your child will unfold. In the first podcast, I talked about the natural genius that's in children. So now we're talking about what does that mean? How does it unfold as a parent? And if literacy begins at birth, what does that mean? Your child's not reading. He or she has no functional language skills at this point, but auditorily they can hear and see. So I just want to kind of journey for a few minutes about that foundation that you're laying to unlock the natural genius that's in your child. For fathers, there's almost fathers don't have the same attachment that mothers do. Mothers are carrying this child, and so that bonding that takes place between the mother and child has begun. Now, fathers do not have to be completely disconnected from that. I mean, for example, I'm going to personalize this. When Jackie was carrying our first child, I used to sit there and just rub her belly. And she would just sit there and grin while I rubbed her belly. And I knew that obviously had to be a good moment. We're beginning to think about what it is, what's it going to be like to be a parent. And we talked about that. And we prayed over it because we had lost one child. She had a miscarriage. And this was our second effort at it. And her pregnancy went along well. She was happy and all of that. And I was anxious. What's it going to be like being a father? What's it going to be like being a parent? What are my duties? What are my responsibilities? These are questions that went through my mind. You are going to be a father. I can remember growing up in Philadelphia. My mom had 4 children, and unfortunately, my mom and dad didn't make it, so my mother raised us. So I had no idea what it was like having a father to participate in my life. I knew my dad and all that, but that's another story. So here we were on the time limit, if you will, of becoming a parent. And I can remember it as if it were yesterday. We had practiced what we were going to do, and so forth and so on. So what happened? It was on a Saturday night. Jackie said, I got to go. We grabbed a little bag, got in the car. You have to understand that Gary is an industrial city, so there's railroad tracks everywhere. So you had to have a plan A and a plan B. And to get to the hospital, we had to go across at least 2 or 3 sets of tracks. And fortunately, that night there wasn't any trains that delayed us. So we checked into the hospital, and there were 7 men in the waiting room, and one woman, and then me. So the long and short of it was the order in which they came in was the order in which they left. So I was the last one in the waiting room, and the doctor came in at 6:42 that morning, woke me up. I was sitting there sleeping in the chair. He said, "Wake up, Pop, you got a son." I almost levitated. I'm a father. I got a boy, proud baby boy. You know, I went and saw the baby and I checked on Jackie. I couldn't wait to get home. You know, all the things that a new father does. You know, the prevailing color for a boy was blue, and the prevailing color for a girl was pink. So naturally, I had to go to the store, get the paint, call Mama Wallace, call Nana Young to let them know that they were grandparents of a new child. So there was excitement in the air. I mean, I painted and I rearranged the furniture and so forth and so on. So there was a whole new routine that we had to get used to: feeding, diapering, and so forth and so on. So all of these are the things that at the onset of becoming a parent that one has to engage himself or herself in. And you know, before you know it, the time is moving on. There you have this infant that you feed, you diaper, you check into the pediatrician from time to time regarding the wellness of the baby. And before you know it, year one, you got a year-old child, and he was progressing. He was happy. Jackie was happy. I was happy. So obviously, we were doing some things that made sense. And so all of that to say that we were both teachers, and so Jackie read to him every chance she could get. She read to him, and so this naturally he gravitated to her when she picked up a book. She would always hold him in her lap, and you know, turn the page, and so forth and so on. I was always interested in telling him some kind of story as he went to bed. I would stand over his crib and look at him and talk to him, play with him, and on and on and on. What am I saying? All of this is part of the nurturing process that takes place that, unbeknownst to either of us, we're setting the foundation for his development as it relates to learning and the things that he will appreciate. All the things that you're doing in terms of reading and talking and playing, that's part of the nurturing process. I think it's important to understand that your child, without having the capacity to speak, is watching you. His eyes move when you move. He becomes familiar with your touch, he or she becomes familiar with the way that you hold them. And this is children are beginning to develop a sense of who you are. Anytime you hold them, anytime you feed them, they become sensitive to your touch, and so forth and so on. So this is all, without calling it, you are communicating certain things to your child. And in that communication, they're developing a sense of trust that when you touch them, pick them up, feed them, clothe them, change the diaper, they know the hands. They're familiar with that touch. They're familiar with the communication that goes on when you're doing this. And that's all part of the parenting process. It's also important that as a father, that you participate in the parenting process. It's not left up to the mother. Beyond giving birth and breastfeeding, you can do all of the things as it relates to nurturing that child. You can feed the child. You can change the child's diaper. You can bathe the child. You can put the child down for his or her rest. You can just spend time doing all those things. Now, to me, that was important. That was important that I participate and be a part of that child's development. I would read and talk to the child. They get used to your voice tone. They get used to the modulation in your voice, whether you're talking loud, whether you're talking soft. All of this is helping that child to know who you are as a parent. It's important that during the parenting process that you and the mother are on the same page of what you want for that child, because then that helps you to figure out those things that you will do as part of the parenting process. For example, there's going to be the midnight feeding, the midnight diaper changing. You want to participate in that. Don't just leave that up to the mother. And all of the things that is possible during that infant stage has a lot to do with how you engage during that period of the child's development. The holding of the child is helping that child to begin to develop a sense of self. Holding of the child is telling that child that he or she can trust you. The way that you touch that child and hold that child, these are the early stages of self-confidence. These are the early stages of what some of the theorists say, trust versus mistrust. And so what you're doing there is helping that child to develop a sense of trust when your hands touch that child. They know those hands. They know that touch. It's the sensory, it's the feeling that they're able to recognize, and so when their bodies can, when you pick them up, sometimes they're a little tense, but then they recognize that touch and they're able to relax. Now, what does that have to do with the genius? Well, figure that you're building a house. You got to lay the foundation before you can go up. There has to be a solid foundation. And that all occurs during those early months, those early years, before they begin speaking, before they begin talking. All of what I'm saying is the foundation for the unfolding process is critical during those first couple of years when they're babies, infants. They don't begin their language until that toddler period, when they really begin talking and all. But all of what you do during the first couple of years sets the stage for that. It's amazing. One of America's pastimes was folks watching folks building, putting up a new building, and they would just watch them excavate the ground, get the ground ready, and then put in the proper what they call the rebars and the cement. And once all that's in, and the cement is treated in such a way so that it doesn't crack, and so forth and so on. So then once that's done, then they can go up with the construction. It's the same thing with children. You doing that during those first couple of years. It is the foundation that you're laying for them, so that as those next years come, the foundation of what you laid during the first couple of years is there, and you can build on it. It's difficult to go back and undo what has been done. So that's what I said. There are no perfect parents, but you want to be a good parent. There are things that you and the mother will look at and wonder if what you did made any sense, or wonder if you did the right thing. Well, that's part of the process. none of us are perfect, but the goal when all is said and done is that you were a good parent. As I begin to wrap up this podcast, I just want to go back over a couple of things which I think are absolutely critical. Remember, literacy begins at birth. And all of what you're doing may not seem like it, but it's laying that foundation. It's helping that child to develop a sense of confidence when these hands touch him. They also know that what you do and how you do it, if it has that sense of nurturing, and that you and the mother are on the same page of the things that you want for the child. There is no magic bullet to parenting. It's what you guys do that's in the best interest of your child. And I'm saying that to say this. What you're doing is really an investment in the child's life. It may not seem like it, but that foundation is what he will rest on for the rest of his life. So don't think small because it's a baby, because it's a newborn, because it's an infant. Think about the Empire State Building, which is over 100 stories high. What enables that building to stand as it has stood over the years is the foundation that was laid. And the foundation that you're laying is not just for his childhood, but it's for life. You can't say enough about the importance of the formative years of development of any child. The time will come when you'll look back and you can look at each other and say, we've done good. So until next week, I hope that these chats are nuggets that will enable you to be a good parent.